So a few words of wisdom, so to speak. First of all, finding a project. What is it that you plan on building? Now, I want you to approach this and think about what you would want to build and why you want to build it. So for example, what type of game would you want to play? What type of game are you going to have fun playing? But then you got to look at it from the perspective, what type of game are you capable of building? What makes sense for you? Now, you want to make sure that you put a lot of thought into this, and that's not the only thing you should be thinking of. You should be thinking about what's going to make your game fun. So for example, when you're first coming up with the idea, I have an example down here. It says, I don't want you to write something like, I want to play music while showing path following animation and hitting keys. I'd rather hear you say something like, I want to write a rhythm game similar to Guitar Hero for a keyboard. This paints a much easier picture, and it leaves a lot of room for flexibility within the project, which we'd see in the objectives you choose. So again, that really paints a picture of, are you choosing the objectives first, then the game, or are you choosing the game, then the objectives? So put some good thought into this and make sure that, make sure that what you choose is something that you can get behind, something you're willing to put your heart and soul into, because you will be for the next month or so. For your objectives, so each objective should be an even portion of the assignment. So for example, if you have 5 objectives, each objective should be roughly 1/5 of the overall work. Now that's a gray area because there's other things other than objectives that need to get done, things like menu systems and things like that. A poorly done proposal is often characterized by attempting way too much, and that comes from not understanding clearly what's involved. So you need to know what your objectives are and how difficult they are. So if you tell me you're going to do pathfinding, and then you have a whole bunch of other really complex objectives as well, unless you're willing to commit every waking second you have for the next month or so, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to keep things in perspective. So I've broken down some things to try and narrow down what you should be thinking about when you're coming up with your objectives. So first of all, items that are too difficult and need to be broken down. So for example, physics. That's too general. What kind of physics? When? Where? How? And it has to be more than just gravity. Gravity is not enough. Gravity is too simple. Animation. Again, what kind? Is it path following? Is it path following movement? So is it like translation, or is it frame animation, where you're actually showing the motion of the object itself? Items that are not really objectives but basic requirements of any program. Code is well organized. Of course it is. Comments are descriptive. They must be. Programs execute correctly. That's a basic expectation. Your program should run and operate as expected. Items that are too vague. Interesting interaction. Useful feedback given on the screen. Good use of color. Those are terrible. Anytime you have any type of subjective descriptive word like interesting or useful or good, that's no good. That's not quantifiable in any way. You need to be able to measure it, whatever it is you plan on doing. Okay? So those are all my little tips for that. So let's just briefly, at the end of this phase, the only thing that you're going to be submitting is your initial project planning document, that one document with your descriptions and your 5 objectives. That's all that's expected of you. In terms of marking scheme, Phase 1 and Phase 2 will be marked together as a single assignment, and Phase 1 is really only 4 of the marks, which is in your communication section. So did you submit it, and did you do a good job? So if you submitted it on time, you get 2 of the 4. If you did a clear job and you have few errors and few objectives that need to be redone, then you might get 3 or 4 out of 4, depending on how many mistakes or how much you have to redo and modify. So that's basically the expectations for Phase 1.